Welcome to Straight Up Dog Talk, a new kind of podcast where no topic is off limits. We're bringing in experts and owners to have the conversations we should be having as a dog community. Each week, a new guest will share firsthand experiences, educational resources, or professional guidance to help you learn and grow along with your dog. You won't get one perspective here, you'll get them all, because every dog is different and every owner is too.
You can follow along on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Straight Up Dog Talk, or by visiting www.straightupdogtalk.com. Tune in from any of your favorite podcast platforms.
Welcome back to another episode of Straight Up Dog Talk. I'm Em, and we're here again with Josh as usual.
Hello.
And tonight's guest is Felicia, who isn't our normal dog Instagram dog guest. She's also a personal friend and plant aficionado, just like me. How are you doing tonight, Felicia?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you guys tonight?
Good. It's been kind of a busy week, and it's like not even been the whole week yet.
Very true. Very true.
Well, why don't you start off and kind of just give the listeners a little bit of information about you and your dogs and how you kind of just get by day to day in life.
Okay. My name is Felicia, and I'm in Iowa. I'm about an hour and a half south of here in Iowa. And I'm married with 3 adult kids, two dogs. I work in supply chain at an office manufacturing company. And my 2 dogs are Larry, who is a long-haired Chihuahua, and then Daryl, who is a Chiweenie. He heard his name, so he's here.
He's decided to join the podcast. Daryl is such a cutie, too, and you guys will be able to see, we'll make sure that there's a links to Felicia's socials. She does have a plant account and a dog account for the dogs. And Daryl is a really cute little guy. He's got a very unique looking coat, and he is the Chiweenie, and you can definitely see the dachshund in him. But he just really has a very unique skin coat, and he's absolutely darling. I wish you guys could all see him. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit of, let's just kind of go off book here and talk a little bit about Plantstagram, because that's how you and I met.
It is.
A lot of people don't know that initially it wasn't Em Loves Dogs. It was Em Loves Dogs and Plants. I tried to double niche, which is frowned upon by Instagram. So we eliminated plants because the dogs were getting more reception than the plants. But Felicia has a massive following because she has fantastic content. And I just want her to kind of just share with the audience a little bit about that, because it is a little bit different than the Dogstagram world.
Okay. Well, I started it probably about 3 years ago, and it derived from Facebook. I was on Facebook into different plant groups, looking for different types of plants, learning about the different plants. I have had plants my whole entire life. I used to help take care of them at my mom's house. And the oldest plant I own is 25 years old that my husband bought me when we were dating. So I've always had plants, but I started getting more into plants, learning that there's different varieties of plants except for the same 8 that Walmart always sold. And then when I started finding all the different types of plants, then I started meeting people buying and selling and trading plants. And a few of them would ask for my Instagram. And I thought that was so weird that they asked for my Instagram, because I'm like, you don't really need to see what my daughter did at dance this weekend. But I gave my Instagram page away, or my Instagram's just my personal Instagram. And then when I looked at their Instagrams, I realized that their pages were all plants, that it was just a plant page. I'm like, oh, so this is a thing. And I looked at their followers, and their followers were all just plant pages. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing it, because my friends and family don't want to see all my plant stuff. But I have a group of friends that want to just see my plants and don't need to know what my kids are doing. So then I started my plant page, and that's how that started. And I have a couple hundred plants, and I like to do videos on how to take care of them, different ways to propagate them, divide them, ways to make more, ways to make them look prettier. And then I do funny content as well, just to make a butt of myself, just to have fun. It's just a creative outlet. I didn't realize how much I liked making reels or taking pictures until I started doing it. And then, of course, my dogs are always with me, which they are right now. They're both one on each side of me. And I started adding them into some of the videos, which I really enjoyed doing, but my audience wasn't as receptive because, like Em said earlier, it's two different niches. And I decided to create their own page so I could do videos with just them, an audience targeted for just dogs. And I don't do as much content for them. I only have 2 dogs, but like I said, I have 200 plants. So I'm busier on the plant page.
It's I can see where it would definitely be easier to make content with the plants that you have. You have so many different plants. So if any of you guys are interested in plants or learning about plants or learning how to grow your own green thumb, definitely follow Felicia's plant account, which we will share in the episode details, because she has an amazing collection. She has plants that I had never heard of or seen, and she also does make, oh my.
Fighting over my lap space.
That's the joy of 2 dogs right there.
It is.
But you really do have a beautiful collection and a lot of things that I had never seen or heard of before. So it was really helpful to me when I first started, because you helped me in so many ways kind of, learn how to be better at taking care of my plants. And then obviously it just turned into this whole thing where we realized, oh, we live in the same state. Oh, we don't really live that far apart from each other. Oh, let's get together and meet. And then we just realized we had so many other things in common, and one of those was dogs.
Absolutely.
So we did actually meet in person. I think it'll be in May, it'll be a year ago that we met for the first time. We both like to go to a local kind of like a vintage flea market that happens twice a year here. And so we just thought that would be a great spot for us to meet up, and we had a lot of fun and sat at the entry booth together and just chatted and got to know each other. And it's just kind of rolled on from there. Let's talk a little bit about the dogs now. How long have you had dogs?
I have always had dogs. When growing up, my parents bred boxers. I grew up with a couple different litters of boxers. And later, my mom actually had a Rottweiler that she studded out, and as payment or whatever, she got pick of the litter, and then that dog became mine. So I had my Rottweiler, and I had him forever. He was my best friend through junior high and high school, being kids can be. So my Rottweiler was my best friend for sure. And after I lost him, I decided I wanted a small dog because I wanted something completely different. I didn't want to compare. I didn't want to have the same type of dog at all. So I went with a min pin, which oh my gosh, small dogs, big dogs, complete difference. It's crazy how different they are. Personalities, and there's just so many differences between them. And I like them both, but I'm more of a large dog person, even though I'm sitting here with 2 small dogs on my lap right now.
I think Josh totally understands that. He went from having 2 small dogs to having a large dog. And Artie is the first large dog that you ever had, right?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, she's medium. She's 45 pounds.
Well, medium, large, that's say it's bigger than these 2 fighting in her lap currently.
Yes. But not bigger than, say, Fitz.
But not bigger than Fitz. No, she's not that much smaller than Fitz, but definitely is just a teeny bit smaller. After you moved on from Urati, you said you went to a min pin, and you did that because you didn't want to compare the 2 dogs. This is something that I have actually seen on Instagram posts a couple of times now in some of the other accounts where, they had their soul dog, and that soul dog just left such an imprint on them that they, if they couldn't get another border collie again, or they didn't want to get another healer, they didn't want to get another Doberman, because that dog left such a mark on them. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, all of my dogs have been mutts. So I don't think that I don't think that I've ever looked at it that way until recently. And I can actually kind of see where that would be something that some people might want to factor in when they're making a decision, because you don't want to compare the 2 dogs. Like that's, a huge motto of the show is that every dog is different and every owner is too. And I think that you're always a different owner with every dog. So, your relationship is kind of dependent on how the dog behaves, how the dog needs to be trained. And going from, a Rottweiler to a Min Pin, that's a big difference.
It is. And it was funny when I met my husband. He had actually had a Min Pin and a Maltese poodle mix.
Oh,
So we had the 3 small dogs together. And we had them for actually quite a few years. And we had those guys until my second son was born, or my second child was born, I think is when we lost the last of the 3 of them. So then we had a little bit of a stall without a dog. I didn't realize how messy my kids were once I no longer had a dog in the house eating. I was like, oh my gosh, I do have to vacuum every day. I did not realize that. And
dogs are very handy with that.
Yeah. So we had found a Shar-Pei lab mix in the paper for free. And we thought we would check him out. He was about a year old and he was an awesome dog. We had him for about 7 years until he passed away. But while we had him, my daughter had acquired a Chihuahua that was already a few years old, that had already went through 3 homes. The previous owners kept having issues, had to have her rehomed. So we were her last home, and she passed away when she was 15. And while we still had her, the Shar-Pei lab had passed. And my youngest was about 6, I think. And I actually wanted another kid, and my husband did not. And he said, let's get a dog instead. He would be okay with a dog. And we already had Pixie, my daughter's Chihuahua. So then I got Bruce Wayne, and poof, it's all right.
It's okay. And that must have been the one that was the real important dog. Those soul dogs are they're a very distinguishing point in time in our lives. Mine was Cajun, and it'll be 10 years in July since he passed. And it's still hard not to get emotional about him.
Bruce was my sweetheart. He was my pain in the butt. He was my 4th kid for sure. And he was funny because he was a Rottweiler boxer mix, and he was pure red. And so the Min Pin that I had was pure red. And he was a mutt like Sebastian, and he was a Rottweiler like my Austin. So he was a piece of all of my 3 previous dogs that meant so much to me. And he was a bit of all of them. And so, yeah, he was super special to me. And he was a hard loss. He had cancer. We had some surgeries. They said that he had 6 months to a couple of years. It just depended on when the cancer would come back. It was one of those that it was going to come back. It was just a matter of time. And while we had him, Pixie had passed away, and my daughter had talked me into getting another Chihuahua. So we got Larry. That's where Larry comes from. So we had Larry and Bruce Wayne together, and Larry loved Bruce. Larry is actually the smartest small dog I've ever seen. He learns from mimicking, and he learned so much from just watching Bruce. We did not have to train Larry on how to potty train or anything. He just followed Bruce, did whatever Bruce did. And it's funny to see him because he still has some of the big dog habits, and he still he still has some of Bruce's personality, and it's so cute. But after Bruce passed away, then Larry was actually in the middle of the living room just crying and howling, and it made us so sad. And so we decided to get Larry a puppy. That's where Daryl came from. And we got Daryl from a hoarding situation here in town. We got him from the local shelter, and he was 8 weeks old. And when we brought him home, if you could have seen the look on Larry's face, he was like, no, I was kidding. I'm okay by myself.
That was Odie.
Yeah.
That was Odie as soon as we brought home Artemis. Yeah.
That's a common experience right there.
Larry actually went and hid under our bed for the first 12 hours. And I'm like, no, I made a mistake. I'm like, no. But you heard them growling at each other. They're still inseparable. They still hang out all the time, and they wrestle, they play, they sleep together, play together. And that's where we're at now.
They're very funny, and they're very active little guys, and they both have very big personalities. But Daryl is the one that just kills me because he is always into something, which is kind of where this episode, the two things are going to collide, because having dogs and plants together is kind of a tough situation, because there are plants that are poisonous to dogs and cats, and they're not always the same plants. So let's talk a little bit about how you manage keeping your dogs out of your plants and some of the funny things that you've experienced because of having dogs and plants.
Larry luckily did not care about plants at all. Daryl liked all the plants that dangled and swung. He wanted to play tug of war with them. And it was a matter of training him as a puppy not to play with those, to leave them alone. And he does now. He does leave them alone. And I would strongly recommend, if you can't keep your dog out of your plants, that you should not leave your dog unsupervised with your plants. So your plants need to be up or in a different room. They shouldn't be in the same room as your plants if you can't watch them while they're together. But my dogs are not my dogs. Daryl will still get into the plants, not so much the plant to eat at the leaves or to mess with them, but he has a tennis ball, and his toys, and he plays with those, and he will throw them up or push them and get them into situations where I need to come help him. So it's his way of making me play with him. So they will get stuck into my pothos vines that are rolled up on my floor, or my ficus tree. He'll get it under the saucer underneath and start digging at it and shaking it. And I have videos where my plants are knocked over, and he's like, "Oh, you're here to get my ball," when I walk into the room. He does not care that the plant got knocked over. But neither of the dogs will eat the plants or mess with the plants. They do like Lecca balls and cocoa chips that I use in my potting mix. If those get dropped or left unattended, they like to play with those. If I catch them, I will tell them to stop, and they both drop right away. But if not, I think we've consumed a couple cocoa chips.
At least cocoa chips that's just wood. It'll pass through. It's not that big of a deal, especially if they chew it up and destroy it a little bit. It's the Lecca balls that get me, because they're like little clay balls for
anybody. That's exactly what they are.
They're, and they're not very big. I don't even know what to compare. They're smaller than a marble, but I just think it's so funny that the obsession with a ball is so high that he's like, "Oh, this is a tiny ball. It needs to be my toy now."
Yes, that's exactly what Daryl does. So funny. Yes.
So how old again is Daryl?
Daryl will be 2 on Christmas.
Oh my. And Larry
he turned 3 in May.
Okay.
So it will be 4 this May.
Well, they're still youngins.
Yeah,
They are
babies. So Bruce Wayne, then he passed during COVID then?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And you said that Daryl came from a hoarding situation, correct?
He did, yes.
Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about that situation? Because spreading awareness, things to look for, shutting these kinds of operations down is really important. And, identifying those situations and knowing what those situations are like is kind of one of those things that doesn't get talked about enough. And people don't understand that, this is kind of a scary reality that's happening behind closed doors.
Right. This was the situation where there was 2 trailers that lived next to each other in a small town right outside of Muscatine. And it was a mother-daughter situation where they each had their own trailer. And one trailer, they confiscated 56 small dogs living in the trailer. You couldn't even walk through it, from what I heard, because the feces and debris was just piled up. There wasn't even paths. You just walked on top of it. So it's really hard to rehome dogs that don't understand how to do personal cleaning, and when they don't get to experience that themselves. But there was 56 dogs that our Humane Society took in, and then the other trailer had 28 small dogs. And then it wasn't the Humane Society, but it was a local shelter that works nonprofit to rehome dogs, took in those 28 puppies puppies to dogs. There was quite an age range, I believe, between all dogs total that we had to try to rehome.
Yeah, that was similar to my second dog, Odysseus, Odie. He came from Iowa City, where there was same situation. Multiple trailers that people had that they were just had as many dogs as they could put in there. And Odie, he actually learned door darting behavior because he wasn't fixed. None of the dogs there were fixed. And so he figured out, well, if I'm not getting the attention that I want here, I'm going to get it out there. And then he would always come back. And so that was something that we had to work with. If he felt like you were not giving him enough attention, he would just wait for that door to crack open and run. And we figured out after a while that if we would leave the house and like try to get him, then it was a game. But if we just shut the door, he would like get to the end of the sidewalk, turn around and be like, hey, and like come back and scratch at the door.
Speaking of Odie, let's make a reference to stubborn breeds here, because Yorkies are stubborn breeds, but also Chiweenies, Dachshunds are stubborn breeds. And
So stubborn.
coming from that kind of a situation, I imagine that you had a little bit of difficulty with training, like you said, keeping himself clean. And Dachshunds are hard to potty train. My parents still have a Dachshund that's 12 years old that isn't potty trained. Was that a difficult situation for you?
That was very difficult. With all of the dogs that I've ever had, I've never had one that it just seemed like it wasn't getting anywhere at first. And I did a lot of reading, a lot of studying to figure out what I could do to help him potty train. It seemed like he had no desire to potty train at all. I read that it's very common for dogs that come from a hoarding situation to not potty train, and it's very common for Dachshunds to not potty train. So I had a double whammy on us. And I think Daryl was around 8 to 9 months old when I could say he was 100% potty trained. He will have the excited pee once in a while if somebody comes over that he hasn't seen for a while. But otherwise, he is house trained. And he has me trained. Last night it was pretty cold outside, so he got to poop in the garage.
My parents do that too. They let their dogs go to the bathroom in the garage if it's too cold.
He woke me up around 1:32 in the morning, and we came out to the front room where the front door is. I went to the door, and he didn't even come close. He was just sitting there. I was like, "Are we going to the garage?" He went out to the kitchen, and I followed him. Okay.
He absolutely does have you trained.
He does.
I'm glad that he made progress, though, and that you were able to potty train him. And again, commend you for doing the responsible thing and doing the research, because I feel like that's where a lot of owners kind of start down the fail path, is that we have access to all of these, information resources about the dogs and their breeds and what's hard for them and what's easy for them and how to, find a trainer that can help you with these kinds of things. But not enough people want to dig in and invest in those situations.
So, and it is really frustrating. And there wasn't easy days at first. We had paper towel rolls of paper towels and the Clorox bottles stationed in about 3 to 4 different spots of the house to clean up accidents right away, so the smell didn't set in. All the kids and my husband, we all did it. Everybody, as soon as you seen an accident, we cleaned it. And then one of the things that I did read about the Dachshunds is that they have such a keen sense of smell and hearing that when they go outside, they're immediately distracted on why they're outside. So it's getting them to understand why they go outside to begin with. They don't realize they're supposed to go out there to go to the bathroom. So the article that I read suggested that you limit the space that they have. They don't get rewarded with explore time or play time. They're out there in a very small contained area. They recommended a playpen or something just right in the area that you want them to do their business, and that they always do their business there. And then once they do their business, then you can open them up, let them play, let them run. And that's supposed to help. And so we try to minimize that, but we had a big fenced-in yard, so it was really hard, but we got there eventually.
Time and dedication. And I mean, again,
just repetition.
Repetition. That's a huge one. I mean, as far as potty training goes, I've always said, when they're puppies, depending on their age and their size, every 30 minutes to an hour, you go outside and you try to go potty no matter what, because that reinforced behavior and the treat for going potty, that just really builds, one, your relationship with your dog, but it builds that repetition and that routine and teaches them, hey, this is the thing that we do. We don't pee in the house.
One of the funny stories I have with them, when I was training Daryl, we decided to get the bells to put on the door. And so there's a string and it has the bell on it, or the strap and it has a bell. And I was sitting on the floor and I was showing him, I was smacking the bell, opening the door, smacking the bell, opening the door. And he's just like, why are we sitting here? Totally phased. I mean, totally unfazed by the whole thing. And later that night, I'm watching TV with Daryl on my lap, and I hear the bell ring. And I'm like, what? Freaked me out. I go out there, and Larry's sitting there, just hitting the bell. Like I said, I've never had to teach that dog anything. He just learns from following. So I opened the door, and sure enough, he went out, and he did a circle on the deck, came back in, and sat by the treat jar. I'm like, Larry, no. But I did have to mention Larry's also my chubby dog. He's very food driven. So it was really hard because I wanted to reward them for ringing the bell and going outside, but Larry would do that just to get a treat and not do his business.
That would be Toby. Toby would do the same thing. Now, we did bell training also, but Fitz got overexcited about the bell training, so I finally ended up having to take the bells away because he would run over to the door and then he would hit those bells so hard that they would just swing all the way around and fly off the door. So we kind of eliminated the bell. Every time I move, I put them on the door that they need to go to learn, the new house layout. But after we've been in our new situation for a couple weeks or months, I usually take it off because those bells will just go flying and break something. And now you have both of them in your lap. Look at that cozy little group.
We have also learned that Larry knows, well, they both have actually rung the bell to get the other one to drop a toy or to get off my lap. They've both done that. I'm like, and my husband has pointed that out. He's like, he doesn't want to go outside. He just wants the other one to think he wants to go outside so that he stops playing with the ball or gets down or whatever they're doing. It's a distraction.
That is hilarious. And also very smart. I'm very impressed, Larry, with your shenanigans.
Thank you, Daryl. So I'm getting a bath right now. Sorry.
It's okay.
Oh.
Another thing that we like to talk about on this podcast a lot is owner accountability. Have you ever had a situation with any of your dogs through your lifetime where you have felt like you have had to be extra protective or extra careful with your dog in certain situations?
Yes, with Bruce Wayne, he was big and he was scary looking to people that didn't know him. But when we got him, he was almost 12 weeks old. He was a backyard accident from my brother's neighbors. The boxer and the Rottweiler were actually on opposite sides of the chain link fence when it happened. They were both tied up in their backyards. And they got, it's funny, but that's where it came from. But
life finds a way.
Yes. So the people that had the puppies did not intend on having puppies and didn't really do much with them. So they spent 12 weeks in a pen unsocialized. So when we got Bruce, he was afraid of everything. And when he was about a year and a half old, he started actually displaying some aggression toward new things that scared him. Not to us, not to the kids at all. I would trust them 100% with my kids. Larry. Oh, gosh. And so he was really scary, and he would nip at new people that approached him too quickly. We would have to tell people, you can't approach him quickly or he will nip. So if new people came over, they would stand still. If they were too scared, then we would just put Bruce away. We didn't have him out when new people came over. He did have an incident where he charged the fence and went after one of the neighbor's dogs that were walking by just because he's protecting his property. And that neighbor was very understanding. They had dogs too. But what we did after that is we built a 6-foot privacy fence. So he wasn't distracted by that. And still had the smaller fence out front, but he was not allowed to go out there without me or my husband to supervise him because he would he would return on command. He was a very smart dog, but if he needed to go outside and do his business, we couldn't be out there with him. Then he was in the yard with the side of the yard that had the 6-foot privacy fence so that he was protected from people and people were protected from him. And if we had a huge gathering, what we always have like a Halloween party, he would get to go to the bedroom for the night. He would get to go lay in bed and not have to deal with meeting new people because it would just overstimulate him. And we didn't want him to hurt anybody or him to get hurt. Yeah, it was a lot of work. And actually, after we lost Bruce, it was weird to not get anxious when somebody would come to the door anymore. I didn't realize how anxious we would get because we didn't want Bruce to hurt anybody or anybody to get hurt from Bruce.
It definitely does take an extensive amount of energy and adjustment, to build your lifestyle around your dog's needs. But it sounds like you do a really good job of it. What about with these two? Is there anything that you do for these two to help them stay safe, minimize interactions that are negative, anything like that?
Yes, if nobody is home, if nobody is with them and they're at present, they are in their kennel. They get kenneled up. My son, I have 2 sons, adult sons that live at home, but they usually work in the evening, so they're home during the day, so they don't get kenneled up a whole lot. But in the mornings, first thing, nobody's up and moving. My husband and I head to work. They both kennel up, and that's where they stay, and it's for their safety more than anything, so they don't get into trouble. Or I don't think that they would do anything to the house, but that's how we started off training them, and that feels right. And I know where they're at. They're safe. They can't get into anything. Nothing's going to happen to them while they're in there. And we leave the kennel open. It's their safe space. They feel good in there too. Larry will retreat in there every once in a while on his own throughout the day or evening. He likes his bed in there. And if Daryl's enough, he'll go in there and lay down and be like, this is where I'm at. And if I had given them a special treat, Daryl eats his twice as fast as Larry and will try to steal Larry's. That is the only time they will seriously fight, where I got to separate them. And so we have just decided to put Larry in the kennel. And he knows when I get the special treat out, it's funny, Larry goes straight to the kennel. I don't even have to say anything. He goes to the kennel. He knows he's getting his treat, and Daryl goes to the dog bed.
I think that's really, really great that you do that. And it's really great. Obviously, Larry is very smart. He picks up on things very quickly.
He does. I've never met a little dog so smart. I'm not saying that little dogs can't be smart, but it just surprises me how smart he is sometimes.
He knows what works for him, but
he does.
And also how to game the system.
He does know how to game the system.
He does.
The thing about the kennel, though, is that, again, that's another one of those tools that kind of has a negative stigma on it. And again, like you said, it's a safe place. It should be a place where they feel comfortable, where they wind down, where they relax. And I love hearing stories about dogs who just go into their kennel to hang out, because that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a place where they can go and wind down and feel safe, or, separate themselves from their younger brother that's making them a little bit crazy at the moment.
Yes. And we just moved to this house that we are in now in May. So we've had some construction work going on. And when we have construction workers going in and out, and if I'm at work, they're in the kennel. And the boys even know to just leave them in the kennel until I get home, until the guys are gone, because they might be leaving a door propped open. Larry wouldn't run away, but Daryl definitely would, not to escape the house, but just to go explore, because he's wild.
He definitely seems to be the more mischievous of the two, for sure.
He is. Yes, if we can leave the yard, the fenced yard, Larry can, and he does not need a lead. He follows all the commands and will stay right by my side. Daryl, on the other hand, he will take off.
That's kind of the 50-50 gamble. I think you get that with all dogs because, like Josh said, his dog Odie was a door darter. I had Cajun, who was not a door darter, but if he decided that he just randomly wanted to run, he would run out the door. He was the same way, though. As soon as you close that door, he'd come back like, oh, fine. This isn't fun. I wanted to play. It was never, a negative or bad, or he was trying to run away kind of thing. He just thought it was fun, and he wanted to, encourage us to play too. But that was not a safe game, running down the street. So we did not play. Let's do one more question, and let's tie in both things. As a dog and plant owner, what is your best advice that you would give to someone who wanted to either add a dog or add plants to their current situation with dogs?
If you already have a dog and you want to add plants and you're not sure how your dog is going to react to plants, you can always start off with plants like Calatheas or Hoyas. Calatheas aren't beginner plants, but those are dog friendly. They're not toxic. So they are the safer plants. There is a list of safe plants out there. Again, do your research to make sure that you are finding something that's safe, just in case your dogs get into them. But again, it's supervision. Watch your dogs watch your dogs and the plants at the same time. And if you can't, make sure your dog is somewhere safe, like a kennel, or your plants are put up on a shelf that they can't reach.
I think that's really excellent advice. And definitely, again, do your research, look up and make sure that the plants that you're interested in having in your home are not toxic. I think you and I are both very fortunate to have dogs that are not really interested in getting into the plants. So it's not really an issue, but you never know. One day there might just be that random thing. And it's just better to know what you have and if it's toxic to your dogs or not.
Right. Pothos is one of the most common household plants, and it is one of the most toxic to pets. And I don't think a lot of people realize that.
No, and yeah, you're absolutely right. It is one of the most common. Almost every single house you walk into, anybody has an easy plant. That's what it is.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being on this episode of Straight Up Dog Talk, and we will look forward to chatting with you again soon. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Straight Up Dog Talk was created by Emily Breslin. It is edited, produced, and co-hosted by Josh Wasta under the supervision of Straight Up Dog Talk, LLC, and Emily Breslin. If you're enjoying this podcast, follow or subscribe to be sure you don't miss an episode, and leave us a review on your favorite platform. Looking for more honest and relatable dog content? Check out our sister show, Unpacked, with Jerry Sheriff and Madison Simpson. Thanks for listening to Straight Up Dog Talk. See you next week.